She married for revenge and expected me broken. My boyfriend was her photographer, she quit. At our joint exhibition opening, Karen stood beside Richard, my former assistant and her new fiancé, announcing their engagement to a room full of our peers and collectors. The champagne glasses froze midair. Conversations died. Every eye in the gallery turned toward me, waiting for the explosion, the tears, the dramatic collapse they'd gossiped about for weeks. I did none of those things. Instead, I started clapping. Slowly, at first, then with genuine enthusiasm. I walked toward them, pulled the Leica from around my neck, the one I'd used to build my entire career, and held it out toward Richard. "Congratulations," I said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "May your marriage be filled with light, beautiful compositions, and perfect exposures. This camera brought me success. Perhaps it'll do the same for you both." Richard didn't take it. Karen's perfectly made-up face twisted with something between fury and confusion. Her hand clenched the champagne flute so tightly I thought the glass might shatter. I placed the Leica carefully on the nearest display pedestal, right next to one of Karen's portraits. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. That camera had shot half the photographs currently hanging on these walls, including several of hers. Charlotte appeared at my elbow. My quiet, efficient assistant who'd been with me since our university days, who'd watched this entire drama unfold from the shadows. She'd been there through everything, trailing behind Karen and me like a ghost through 4 years of college and 3 years of professional chaos. "Charlotte, have you had anything to drink tonight?" I asked. "No, Robert. I'm completely sober." "Good. I gave the valet your name. Take my car keys. I've had too much wine tonight. Drive me home." She nodded without question. "Of course." I made it perhaps 5 steps toward the exit before Karen broke from Richard's side and rushed after me. Her heels clicked frantically against the polished gallery floor. She grabbed my jacket sleeve with desperate fingers. "Robert," her voice cracked, "what exactly do you think you're doing?" I stopped, turned slowly, and looked at her with the same expression I'd give a stranger asking for directions. Polite. Distant. Completely unmoved. "I'm going home, Karen. I'm exhausted. Congratulations again on the exhibition. The work is quite impressive." The gallery's ambient lighting made Karen's tears sparkle like diamonds, but I felt nothing watching them form. Charlotte stood patiently beside me, car keys already in her hand, waiting for my signal to leave. Karen's grip on my sleeve tightened. "You can't just leave like this. We need to talk." I gently but firmly removed her hand from my jacket. "There's nothing to discuss. You're engaged now. Richard is a talented photographer. You two will do well together." I checked my watch. 9:45. I have a conference call with Tokyo in 2 hours and a morning flight to Paris. I really don't have time for extended conversations tonight. Richard finally moved from his position across the room. Swagger in every step. He came up behind Karen and placed a possessive hand on her shoulder. "I think what Karen means is that this whole situation is rather awkward, don't you think? Maybe we should clear the air." I looked at him properly for the first time that evening. Richard had been my assistant for 18 months before I discovered he was feeding my client list to competing studios. Before I found the messages on Karen's phone. Before I understood that their connection went far deeper than professional networking. "There's no air to clear," I said simply. "You're both adults. You made your choices. I respect that. Now I'm making mine." Charlotte touched my elbow lightly. "Robert, the valet has the car ready." "Thank you, Charlotte." As we walked away, I heard Karen's voice rise behind us. "You said you loved me. You can't just stop loving someone." I didn't turn around. Charlotte and I exited into the cool night air. The valet had indeed brought my car around, a practical black sedan. Nothing flashy. Charlotte slid into the driver's seat, while I collapsed into the passenger side. We drove in silence for several minutes before she spoke. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen you do." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "Brave? I was just tired, Charlotte. Genuinely, completely exhausted." "Still," she said softly. "Everyone expected you to make a scene. To fight for her. You've spent 3 years doing exactly that." She wasn't wrong. 3 years of chasing Karen, trying to understand her, accommodating her mood swings and dramatic exits. 3 years of everyone in our industry watching Robert Chen make a fool of himself over Karen Williams. When we reached my apartment building, Charlotte parked and turned off the engine. I reached into my jacket's inner pocket and pulled out a gallery catalog, the expensive glossy kind that cost $200 per copy. Inside, I'd tucked a check for $50,000 and a sealed recommendation letter addressed to Anderson Gallery's director in New York. Karen had wanted that connection desperately. Anderson Gallery was the holy grail for emerging photographers. I'd spent 6 months cultivating a relationship with the director, attending events, proving my own work's worth, all to eventually introduce Karen. "Here," I said, handing the catalog to Charlotte. She stared at it. "Robert, this is for Karen." "Was for Karen. Now, it's yours. The gallery director's contact information is on page 43. Call her office Monday morning. Mention my name. She's expecting someone from my studio to reach out." Charlotte's hands trembled as she held the catalog. "Are you serious?" "Completely. Your portfolio is stronger than you think. You've been hiding behind administrative work for too long. It's time you stepped into the light." She opened the catalog, found the check, and gasped. "Robert, I can't accept this." "You can and you will. Consider it back pay for 3 years of dealing with my chaos." Tears formed in Charlotte's eyes. "Thank you. I mean it. Really. Truly. Thank you." I smiled. "You're welcome. Now go home. Get some rest. We have a busy week ahead." After Charlotte drove away in my car, I took the elevator up to my apartment. The silence was deafening. For 3 years, this space had been filled with Karen's presence, her dramatic entrances and exits, her photography equipment scattered everywhere, her voice filling every corner. Now it was just mine again. I showered quickly, threw on comfortable clothes, and made strong coffee. The Tokyo call was important. A major commercial client wanted to discuss a 6-month contract for their advertising campaign. 6 months of steady, lucrative work that would take me to Japan, South Korea, and Singapore. During the call, I focused completely on business. Contract terms, creative direction, timeline, budget. The Japanese clients appreciated my professionalism, my preparedness, my clear vision for their brand. By the time we finished 90 minutes later, the deal was essentially done. They'd send contracts by end of week. I hung up and immediately collapsed onto my bed, not bothering to undress further. My alarm was set for 4:30 in the morning. The Paris flight couldn't be missed. A fashion week opportunity. Potentially career-defining. When the alarm shrieked, I felt like I'd been struck by a truck. Sleep deprivation was nothing new in my industry, but tonight felt different. Heavier, somehow. My phone showed 137 notifications. Text messages asking what happened. Social media posts dissecting the gallery scene. Missed calls from mutual friends. Even my mother had texted, "Your father and I heard about Karen. Are you all right, sweetheart?" I responded to only one message. My mother's. "I'm fine. Mom. Heading to Paris for work. I'll call you next week." Everyone else could wait. The ride to the airport was quiet. I reviewed my Paris schedule on my tablet. 3 fashion shows, 2 private client meetings, 1 potential gallery exhibition opportunity. Packed and profitable. Karen had always criticized my work schedule. Too busy, too focused, too obsessed with success. She wanted spontaneity, adventure, emotional availability. At random 3 a.m. moments. I'd tried, God knows I'd tried. But somewhere along the way, I'd realized something important. Karen didn't actually want me available. She wanted me chasing. The moment I was fully present, she'd create distance. The moment I gave her space, she'd demand attention. It was exhausting. Richard could have that now. As the plane took off, I looked out the window at the city lights fading below. Somewhere down there, Karen was probably still awake, probably still angry, probably already planning her next move. But for the first time in 3 years, I didn't care. I had work to do. A career to build. A life to reclaim. And maybe, just maybe, I'd finally figure out who Robert Chen actually was without Karen Williams defining him. Paris was beautiful, cold, and exactly what I needed. 3 days of non-stop work, fashion shows with impossible lighting conditions, demanding designers, and models who spoke 7 languages, but none particularly well. I thrived in the chaos. My camera became an extension of my body again. Not a tool to capture Karen's vision, not equipment to support someone else's art, but my own instrument creating my own work. The fashion house loved what I produced. Raw, dynamic shots that captured movement and emotion, rather than just clothing. They offered me a contract extension on the spot. More work, more money, more reason to stay away from home. Charlotte managed everything remotely with stunning efficiency. She handled client communications, scheduled follow-up meetings, Even started promoting her own work using the Anderson Gallery connection. Her first solo show was confirmed for 3 months out. "You're glowing," I told her during one of our video calls. "Success looks good on you." She blushed. "I owe this to you, Robert." "You owe this to yourself. I just opened a door. You walked through it." We avoided discussing Karen entirely. Not because it was forbidden, but because she'd become irrelevant to our professional lives. But Karen herself refused to be irrelevant. She called 17 times while I was in Paris. I didn't answer. She sent text messages ranging from angry to pleading to confused to threatening. "How can you just throw away 3 years? Richard means nothing. It was a mistake. You're being cruel and childish. If you don't call me back, I'm coming to Paris." I blocked her number after that last one. Then her friends started reaching out. Mutual acquaintances from our industry. People who'd witnessed our entire relationship, now suddenly playing mediator. "Robert, she's devastated," one mutual friend texted. "She really didn't think you'd actually leave." Another wrote, "Karen admits she made a mistake. Can't you give her another chance?" Even my own friends got involved. "Man, we all know Karen is difficult, but 3 years is a long time. Maybe you're both just exhausted. Take a break, cool off, then talk." Everyone assumed this was temporary. A dramatic pause in the Robert and Karen show, not the final curtain. Only Charlotte understood. "They think you're punishing her," she said during one of our calls. "They think you'll take her back once she's suffered enough." "I'm not punishing anyone," I replied. "I'm just done." "I know that, but they don't. To them, you've been obsessed with Karen since college. They can't imagine you actually moving on." She was right. To everyone who knew us, I was the devoted one, the patient one, the one who tolerated Karen's chaos because I loved her so desperately. What they didn't know was that I'd stopped loving her somewhere around month 18 of our relationship. I'd loved the idea of her, the fantasy, the potential. But the real Karen? The one who criticized my work while stealing my techniques? The one who flirted with my assistants and clients to make me jealous? The one who created drama at every professional event we attended together? That Karen I'd stopped loving a long time ago. I just hadn't admitted it to myself until Richard gave me the perfect excuse to walk away clean. When I returned from Paris, Charlotte picked me up from the airport. She'd brought coffee, my favorite breakfast sandwich, and a tablet loaded with our week's schedule. "Welcome home," she said cheerfully. "You look better." "I feel better." Paris was exactly what I needed. As we drove toward my studio, Charlotte hesitated before speaking. "There's something you should know. Karen came by the studio twice while you were gone." I sipped my coffee, unsurprised. What did she want? The first time, she wanted to collect some equipment she claimed she'd left there. I told her, everything personal had been boxed up and could be picked up during business hours with prior notice. And the second time? She brought Richard. That got my attention. Interesting. They wanted to discuss a business proposal. Something about collaborating on a joint exhibition series. I told them you were traveling and all business proposals should be submitted in writing to your agent. I smiled. "You're getting good at corporate speak. I learned from watching you handle difficult clients." She glanced at me. "But Robert, there's more. Richard has been telling people he left your studio because you were stealing credit for his work." I laughed. Actually laughed. "That's creative. It's not funny. He's building a narrative that you're threatened by his talent, that you sabotaged his career, that Karen chose him because he's the better photographer. Let him build whatever narrative he wants. The work speaks for itself." Charlotte pulled into the studio parking lot. "You're really not bothered by lies?" "No. Anyone who knows my work and knows Richard's work can see the truth. Anyone who believes him without evidence wasn't worth having as a client anyway." We spent the afternoon reviewing the Paris shots, selecting the best images for my portfolio, and discussing upcoming projects. Charlotte had booked 3 new clients during my absence, all offering substantial contracts. "How did you manage this?" I asked, impressed. "I sent them samples of your Paris work with a note saying you were expanding your services. 2 of them responded within hours." "Charlotte, you're wasted as an assistant." "I know," she said with a grin. "That's why I'm putting in my 2 weeks' notice." I blinked. "What?" "Anderson Gallery offered me a position. Junior curator with opportunities to exhibit my own work. It's everything I've ever wanted, Robert. But I wanted to tell you personally, give you proper notice, help you find a replacement." For a moment, I felt panic. Charlotte had been my rock, my organizational backbone, my sanity through 3 years of chaos. Then I felt pride. "That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And you're not giving 2 weeks' notice. You're leaving immediately. Robert, I can't just abandon you. You're not abandoning anyone. You're accepting the opportunity of a lifetime. I'll manage. I always do. She hugged me tightly. Thank you for changing my life. You changed your own life. I just got out of the way. After Charlotte left, I sat alone in my studio surrounded by cameras, lights, and years of accumulated equipment. For the first time since college, I was truly alone professionally. No Karen creating drama. No Richard undermining my work. No assistants to manage. Just me, my camera, and my vision. It felt like freedom. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello. Robert Chen. A woman's voice. Professional. Unfamiliar. Speaking. This is Margaret Anderson from Anderson Gallery in New York. Charlotte gave me your number. I hope that's all right. My heart rate quickened. Of course. Charlotte speaks very highly of you. The feeling is mutual. She's extraordinarily talented. But I'm actually calling about you. I've been following your work for some time, particularly your recent Paris series. Would you be interested in discussing a solo exhibition? I sat down slowly. A solo exhibition at Anderson Gallery. I know it's sudden, but I have an opening in 4 months. One of my featured artists had to withdraw due to health issues. Your aesthetic would be perfect for the space. Obviously, we'd need to meet, discuss themes, select pieces, but I wanted to gauge your interest first. I'm very interested. Excellent. Can you come to New York next week? Let's say Thursday. Thursday works perfectly. After hanging up, I stared at my phone in disbelief. Anderson Gallery. The opportunity I'd worked years to achieve. The connection I'd tried to build for Karen was now mine. Not because of who I was dating. Not because of networking or manipulation. Because of my work. Just my work. I called Charlotte immediately. Did you do this? I asked when she answered. She laughed. Do what? Anderson Gallery just offered me a solo exhibition. Robert, that's amazing. But no. I didn't do anything. Margaret makes her own decisions. She must genuinely love your work. After we hung up, I stood at my studio window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Karen was probably still expecting me to come crawling back. Richard was probably still spreading lies about my character. But none of that mattered anymore. I had my freedom, my career, and finally, my self-respect back. The real question now was what to do with it. The week before my New York meeting, I barely slept. Not because of anxiety about the Anderson Gallery opportunity, but because my mind wouldn't stop replaying the past 3 years. Every moment with Karen, every compromise I'd made, every time I'd chosen her chaos over my own peace. At 3 a.m, I'd find myself in the studio, scrolling through old photographs. Pictures of Karen laughing at gallery openings. Karen posing for test shots. Karen and me together at industry events, her always slightly in front, me always slightly in shadow. When had I become so small in my own life? Charlotte noticed during one of our transition meetings. She was training her replacement, a efficient young man named Marcus, who asked good questions and took detailed notes. But Charlotte's eyes kept drifting to me with concern. You're not sleeping, she said after Marcus left for lunch. I'm sleeping enough. Robert, I've known you for 7 years. I can tell when you're struggling. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. I keep thinking about who I was before Karen. I was 22, fresh out of college, hungry to make a name for myself. I had vision, confidence, ambition. Then I spent 3 years dimming all of that to make room for her light. You didn't dim anything. She tried to eclipse you, but your work always spoke for itself. Did it? Or did I let her narrative become the truth? How many times did I hear people say, oh, you're Karen's boyfriend, the photographer. Not Robert Chen, award-winning photographer. Just Karen's boyfriend. Charlotte was quiet for a moment. Is that what's really bothering you? That people defined you through her? Maybe. Or maybe I'm angry at myself for allowing it. I could have walked away after the first 6 months when I saw her patterns. The mood swings, the manipulation, the way she'd build me up just to tear me down. But I stayed. I told myself I loved her. I told myself, relationships require work. I convinced myself that her chaos was just artistic temperament. You're human, Robert. You're allowed to make mistakes in relationships. But 3 years, Charlotte. 3 years of watching her flirt with my assistants. 3 years of her criticizing my commercial work while using my connections to build her fine art career. 3 years of everyone telling me I was too patient, too accommodating, too devoted. And I wore that devotion like a badge of honor. Look at Robert, so in love he tolerates anything. My voice was rising now, months of suppressed frustration finally breaking through. Do you know what the worst part is? I didn't even realize I'd stopped loving her. I was just going through motions, playing the role everyone expected. The devoted boyfriend. The patient partner. The successful photographer who didn't mind his girlfriend getting more attention at events, showcasing both our work. Charlotte reached across the desk and squeezed my hand. But you did realize it. You walked away. That takes courage. Does it? Or does it just take finally hitting a limit? She announced an engagement to my own assistant at our joint exhibition. Charlotte, that's not a subtle hint. That's a nuclear bomb. Any person with self-respect would have walked away. Yet everyone expected you to stay. To fight for her. To make a scene and win her back. You didn't do any of that. You blessed their union and left with dignity. That's not weakness, Robert. That's strength. I wanted to believe her. But late at night, alone in my apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd wasted 3 years of my life on someone who never truly saw me. The photographs I'd taken during those years were technically excellent. Award-winning, even. But looking at them now, I could see the emptiness behind the composition. Beautiful images with no soul. Perfect technique with no heart. I'd been so busy accommodating Karen's vision, supporting her career, making space for her emotions that I'd forgotten how to create work that mattered to me. The Paris series was different. Those photographs had life, energy, genuine feeling. Because I'd shot them free from Karen's influence, free from the need to dim my own light. 3 days before the New York trip, Karen showed up at my apartment building. The doorman called up to ask if I'd receive her. I almost said no, but curiosity won. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back messily, wearing casual clothes instead of her usual carefully curated outfits. This wasn't the polished, dramatic Karen everyone knew. This was someone genuinely struggling. Can I come in? She asked quietly when I opened the door. I hesitated, then stepped aside. We sat in my living room, an awkward silence stretching between us. Finally, she spoke. Richard and I broke up. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Really? I considered the question honestly. Yes, actually. I don't wish unhappiness on you, Karen. I just can't be part of your life anymore. Why? Her voice cracked. What did I do that was so unforgivable? People break up and get back together all the time. People work through problems. Why can't we? Because there's no we to work through, Karen. There hasn't been for a long time. We were just playing roles. You played the brilliant, temperamental artist. I played the devoted, patient partner. But neither of those people were real. That's not true. I loved you. Did you? Or did you love having someone who would tolerate anything? Someone whose success you could borrow when convenient, whose patience you could test for entertainment, whose devotion made you feel powerful. She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's cruel. It's honest. For 3 years, I confused accommodation with love. I thought if I was patient enough, supportive enough, understanding enough, you'd eventually treat me with basic respect. But you never did. And the worst part is I let you get away with it because I was afraid of being alone. And now, you're not afraid anymore. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. No anger, no love, no lingering attachment. Just emptiness where she used to be. Now I'm more afraid of wasting another day on someone who doesn't value me. Karen started crying, genuine tears that smudged her minimal makeup. Everyone was right. I took you for granted. I thought you'd always be there, always waiting, always willing to take me back. I tested you over and over, and you never failed. Until you did. I didn't fail, Karen. I finally passed. I passed the test of choosing myself. Is there really no chance? Can't we try again? I'll be different. I'll appreciate you. No. The word came out firm, final. Whatever we had is done. You need to move forward, and so do I. She wiped her tears, something hardening in her expression. You'll regret this. You think you're better off without me, but you're not. Everyone knows us as a unit. Robert and Karen, the photographer couple. Without me, you're just another commercial photographer. There it was. The real Karen, emerging from beneath the tears. The one who needed to wound when she felt wounded. Maybe you're right, I said calmly. Maybe I am just another commercial photographer. But I'd rather be that than someone who lost himself trying to love you. After she left, I stood at my window watching her walk away down the street. My phone buzzed. A text from Charlotte. Heard Karen showed up. You okay? I smiled and replied, better than okay. I'm free. That night, for the first time in months, I slept deeply. No nightmares, no restless thoughts, no 3 a.m. anxiety. Just peaceful, dreamless sleep. When I woke up, I felt lighter. The weight of 3 years had finally lifted. I spent the day in my studio, not working but experimenting. Playing with light and shadow. Trying techniques I'd always wanted to explore but never had time for while managing Karen's chaos. Marcus stopped by with coffee. Charlotte told me to check on you. She's worried you're not eating. Tell Charlotte I'm fine. Better than fine. He looked at the experimental shots scattered across my workspace. These are incredible. What are they for? Nothing. Just me remembering why I became a photographer in the first place. That evening, I received an email from Margaret Anderson with details about the exhibition. Reading through her vision, her understanding of my work, her genuine enthusiasm, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Pure, uncomplicated pride in my own accomplishments. Not pride in being Karen's boyfriend, not pride in tolerating the intolerable, but pride in the work I'd created, the career I'd built, the artist I was becoming now that I'd finally chosen myself. New York was cold, crisp, and full of possibility. Margaret Anderson met me at a small cafe, near the gallery. An elegant woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Robert, thank you for making the trip. I've been wanting to meet you in person for quite some time. We discussed the exhibition over coffee. She'd envisioned a retrospective of my commercial work alongside my newer experimental pieces, creating a narrative of artistic evolution. What I find fascinating about your work, she said, is the marked difference between your earlier pieces and your recent work. The technique is consistently excellent, but the emotional depth has changed dramatically. There's a vulnerability in your Paris series that wasn't present before. I considered how much to share. I went through a significant personal change recently. It affected my perspective. The breakup with Karen Williams. I blinked, surprised. You know about that? Margaret smiled gently. The photography world is smaller than you think. Karen has been quite vocal about your relationship ending. She's been telling anyone who'll listen that you sabotaged her career out of jealousy. My stomach tightened. That's not true. I know. I've been watching both your careers for years, Robert. I know exactly what happened. She pulled out her phone and showed me a series of social media posts. Karen had been busy. Posts about betrayal, about men who can't handle successful women, about photographers who steal ideas from their partners. She's trying to rewrite history, I said quietly. She's trying to save face. But here's what she doesn't know. Margaret leaned forward. 3 years ago, Karen submitted her portfolio to Anderson Gallery. I rejected her. Not because she lacks talent, but because her work felt derivative. Technically proficient but emotionally hollow. Do you know whose style she was imitating? My mouth went dry. Mine. Yours. Every composition choice, every lighting technique, every thematic element was borrowed from your earlier work. I recognized it immediately because I'd been following your career since your college thesis exhibition. You were raw then, unpolished. But there was genuine vision. Karen had the polish but none of the vision. I sat back, processing this information. She never told me she applied to Anderson Gallery. Because she was rejected. Instead, she began dating you publicly, networking through your connections, presenting herself as half of a creative partnership. It was strategic, Robert. And effective. She gained access to opportunities she couldn't earn on her own merit. Why are you telling me this? Margaret's expression softened. Because Karen is now telling people that I'm only offering you an exhibition to spite her, that the photography world is full of men protecting men. That your success is unearned while hers has been unfairly limited. I wanted you to know the truth before you hear her version. I felt sick. 3 years of my life. And I'd never truly understood what I was dealing with. She used me. She saw an opportunity and took it. I'm not defending her actions, but I understand them. The art world is brutal, especially for women. She found a shortcut and used it. What she didn't anticipate was that you'd eventually see through it and walk away. Does everyone in the industry know this? Most people who matter do. The ones who believe Karen's current narrative are either too new to know better or too invested in drama to care about truth. Your work speaks for itself, Robert. Always has. That's why I'm offering you this exhibition, not because of who you dated or didn't date, but because you're genuinely talented. After leaving the cafe, I walked through New York for hours, trying to process everything. The relationship I'd mourned wasn't even real. Karen hadn't loved me, she'd used me. Every moment I'd interpreted as passion was actually calculation. Every dramatic exit that made me chase her was manipulation, designed to keep me invested. I'd been a fool. My phone rang. Charlotte. How's New York? She asked cheerfully. Illuminating. I told her everything Margaret had revealed. Charlotte was quiet for a long moment. I knew. What? Not about the gallery rejection specifically, but I knew she was using you. Robert, I've watched her for 7 years. The way she'd take credit for your ideas in conversations, the way she'd position herself in front of you at events, the way she'd undermine your confidence right before big opportunities. I knew. I just didn't think you'd believe me if I said anything. Why didn't you try? Because you weren't ready to hear it. People can't accept truths they're not prepared to face. You had to discover this yourself. She was right. If Charlotte had told me 2 years ago that Karen was using me, I would have defended Karen. I would have called Charlotte jealous or misguided. I had to live through it, hit my limit, and walk away before I could see clearly. I feel stupid, I admitted. Don't, you're human. You wanted to believe in love. That's not stupidity, that's hope. The stupid thing would be going back to her now that you know the truth. There's no chance of that. Good. Because there's something else you should know. Karen has been contacting your clients. My blood ran cold. What? She's been calling them, emailing them, suggesting that you're difficult to work with, that you're going through a mental health crisis, that they should consider other photographers for future projects. Marcus caught wind of it through one of his contacts. That's sabotage. Yes. And it's not working. Most of your clients have been with you for years. They trust you. But she's escalating, Robert. I think she genuinely believed you'd come crawling back, and now that you haven't, she's trying to destroy what you won't share with her. I stopped walking, standing in the middle of a busy New York sidewalk while people flowed around me. How do I handle this? You don't. Your work handles it. You do the exhibition, you continue producing excellent work, you let your reputation defend itself. Engaging with her directly only gives her ammunition. She wants you to fight back so she can play victim. Don't give her that satisfaction. After hanging up, I realized something important. Karen had never loved me, but she'd also never expected me to truly leave. To her, I was a resource, a tool, a stepping stone. The moment I reclaimed myself, I became a threat. And now she was determined to tear down what she couldn't control. I returned to the gallery where Margaret was reviewing exhibition layouts. I need to ask you something. If Karen tries to sabotage this exhibition, what happens? Margaret didn't look surprised by the question. Then we handle it professionally. Documentation. Legal action if necessary. And most importantly, we proceed as planned. Robert, I've been in this industry for 30 years. I've seen every manipulation tactic imaginable. Karen is not the first artist to use personal relationships for professional gain, and she won't be the last. The difference is, I'm choosing to support genuine talent over manufactured drama. She turned to face me fully. The question isn't whether Karen will try to sabotage you. She will. The question is whether you'll let that sabotage work. Will you retreat, hide, play it safe? Or will you claim your space in this industry regardless of her noise? I thought about the past 3 years. All the times I'd made myself smaller to make room for Karen's ego. All the opportunities I'd declined because they might make her jealous. All the ways I'd diminished my own success to preserve her feelings. I'm done making myself small, I said firmly. Margaret smiled. Good. Then let's make this exhibition unforgettable. The 4 months leading to the Anderson Gallery exhibition were the most professionally intense of my life. I worked constantly, selecting pieces, creating new work, refining my artistic statement. Charlotte helped remotely even as she settled into her curator position. Marcus managed the studio with surprising competence, shielding me from distractions. Karen's sabotage attempts continued. She spread rumors, contacted clients, even tried to claim copyright over photographs she'd simply appeared in as a subject. Each attempt fell flat. The industry knew my work, knew my reputation, and increasingly, knew her patterns. But she had one final card to play. 2 weeks before the exhibition opening, Richard published an article on a popular photography blog. The headline read, "The Dark Side of Robert Chen, How One Photographer Built Success on Stolen Ideas and Broken Promises." The article was a masterpiece of manipulation. It positioned Richard as a whistleblower, bravely speaking truth about an industry that protected powerful men. He claimed I'd stolen his concepts, taken credit for his work, and when he'd fallen in love with Karen, I'd retaliated by destroying his career and spreading lies about him. He included carefully cropped emails, edited screenshots of conversations, and testimonials from people I'd never heard of claiming I was difficult, demanding, and vindictive. The article went viral. Within hours, my social media was flooded with comments. People questioning my integrity, demanding I respond, threatening to boycott the exhibition. Industry colleagues began distancing themselves, not defending me but staying carefully neutral. Charlotte called, frantic. Have you seen it? I've seen it. Robert, you have to respond. You have to defend yourself. This is destroying your reputation. Is it? Or is it revealing who actually pays attention to work versus drama? This isn't the time for philosophical pondering. People believe him. People who don't know my work believe him. People who've worked with me, who've seen my creative process, who understand my integrity, they know it's lies. But the general public doesn't matter. Charlotte, I've spent 3 years caring what the general public thinks about my relationship with Karen. I'm done. My work is about to be displayed at Anderson Gallery. That's the response. Not words, not arguments, not playing into their drama. Just excellent work that speaks for itself. She was quiet for a moment. You've changed. I've finally become who I was supposed to be before Karen. But privately, I was shaken. Reading through the comments, seeing people who'd never met me forming strong opinions about my character, watching years of reputation potentially crumble because of well-crafted lies, it hurt. That night, I nearly broke. Nearly wrote a detailed response, nearly engaged in the fight they wanted. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, 1,000 words of defense ready to pour out. Then my phone rang. An unknown number. Hello. Robert Chen? This is David Park from Modern Photography magazine. I'm writing a feature about emerging photographers, and your name keeps coming up. But I've also seen the recent allegations. I wanted to give you a chance to tell your side. Here it was. The opportunity to defend myself. To correct the narrative. To fight back. No, thank you, I said. Silence. I'm sorry. I appreciate the offer. But I'm not interested in responding to allegations. My work is about to be exhibited at Anderson Gallery. Anyone interested in who I actually am as an artist is welcome to attend and see for themselves. But don't you want to defend yourself against these serious accusations? Mr. Park, if someone is determined to believe lies about me, nothing I say will change their mind. And if someone actually cares about truth, my body of work over the past 7 years speaks more clearly than any statement I could write. After hanging up, I felt a strange calm. I'd spent 3 years fighting for Karen's attention, her approval, her love. I was done fighting for anyone's validation. The week before the exhibition, Margaret called with news. Karen has submitted a formal complaint to the gallery board, claiming you've used her image without permission in several pieces and demanding we remove them from the exhibition. What did the board say? They're reviewing her claim. Robert. Did she sign model releases? For every single photograph. I have documentation. Send it to my assistant immediately. And Robert? Prepare yourself. She's planning to attend the opening. She's been telling people she's going to make a scene. Let her come. Let her make whatever scene she wants. I'm not giving her power over my life anymore. The night before the opening, I stood alone in the gallery space, looking at my work displayed on pristine white walls. The retrospective Margaret had curated told a story I hadn't fully understood while living it. The early pieces, technically proficient but emotionally restrained. The middle period, increasingly hollow despite their polish. Then the break, the shift, the Paris series where something inside me had finally come alive again. And the new pieces, created specifically for this exhibition. Raw, vulnerable, honest photographs that finally felt like mine. Charlotte found me there. It's beautiful, Robert. Truly beautiful. Think anyone will show up after Richard's article? The people who matter will show up. That's all that counts. Opening night arrived. I wore a simple black suit, nothing flashy, just professional. Margaret greeted guests at the entrance while I positioned myself near the back of the gallery, watching people arrive. The turnout was better than expected. Industry professionals, collectors, journalists, and photography enthusiasts filled the space. Some people who'd commented negatively on social media showed up, perhaps curious to reconcile the drama with the actual work. Charlotte arrived with Marcus, both beaming with pride. My mother flew in from California, elegant and emotional. Even my grandfather came, a rare appearance outside his usual social circle. Then Karen arrived. She wore a stunning red dress, impossibly high heels, Dramatic makeup. Every head turned as she entered. This was her scene, her moment to reclaim attention. Richard followed behind her, camera around his neck as if he belonged in this professional space. They walked through the exhibition slowly. Karen speaking loudly enough for people nearby to hear. "Oh, this one. I remember when he took this. I gave him the concept, of course. He'd been struggling with creative block. This lighting technique. I taught him that. He never quite got it right on his own. It's interesting seeing work displayed when you know the truth behind it." People glanced at me, gauging my reaction. I did nothing. Said nothing. Just watched quietly. Margaret appeared at my side. "Want me to have security remove her?" "No. Let her talk. Anyone with eyes can see the truth." Karen finally reached the Paris series. She stopped, studying the photographs for a long moment. These were the ones she couldn't claim credit for. Images created entirely without her influence. During my first trip after our breakup. She turned, scanning the crowd until she found me. Our eyes met across the gallery. Then she did something unexpected. She started crying. Not dramatic, performative tears, but genuine emotional breakdown. Richard tried to comfort her, but she pushed him away. She walked directly toward me, people parting to let her through. The gallery fell silent. "Robert," her voice shook. "Please. Can we talk privately? Anything you need to say, you can say here. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I was stupid, proud, cruel. But please. You have to understand." "I understand completely, Karen. You used me for 3 years. You borrowed my connections, copied my style, presented yourself as my equal partner while actually being my career parasite. Then when I finally had enough self-respect to walk away, you tried to destroy me. I understand perfectly." She flinched. "That's not fair. Isn't it? You're standing in a gallery showing my work. Work you tried to claim credit for. Work you told your friends I'd stolen from you, and you want to talk about fair? I loved you," she whispered. "No, you didn't. You loved what I could do for you. There's a difference." Richard stepped forward. "You're being cruel, man. She came here to apologize." I laughed, actually laughed. "Richard, you wrote a 1,000-word article calling me a thief and fraud. You don't get to lecture me about cruelty. Because you ruined my career. I fired you for stealing my client list and shopping it to competitors. That's not ruining your career. That's experiencing consequences for your actions." Margaret stepped between us. "Gentlemen, lady. This is neither the time nor place. If you can't conduct yourselves appropriately, I'll have security escort you out." Karen wiped her tears, her expression hardening. "This isn't over, Robert. You think you've won, but you haven't. Everyone will know the truth about you. They already do, Karen. They're looking at it on these walls. This is the truth. Actual work, actual talent, actual artistic vision. Not manufactured drama, not social media narratives, not carefully edited lies. Just work. And in the end, that's all that ever matters." She stood there, trembling with rage or grief or both. Then she turned and walked out, Richard following helplessly behind her. The gallery remained silent for several long seconds. Then, unexpectedly, someone started clapping. Then another person. Then another. Within moments, the entire space erupted in applause. Not for the drama, but for the work. For the exhibition. For the art that had always been there, waiting to be seen without the distraction of relationship chaos. Margaret smiled at me. "Well handled." A distinguished older man approached. "Robert Chen? I'm Thomas Wu, director of the International Photography Foundation. I'd like to discuss commissioning a series from you for our next global showcase. Your Paris work is extraordinary. We need artists with your vision." Through the evening, people continued approaching. Collectors wanting to purchase pieces. Gallery directors offering future exhibitions. Magazines requesting interviews focused solely on my artistic process, not relationship drama. Charlotte hugged me tightly. "You did it. You really did it." "We did it," I corrected. "None of this happens without you believing in me first." As the crowd thinned, I found myself standing in front of my favorite piece from the Paris series. A simple photograph of an empty cafe at dawn, light streaming through windows, chairs waiting for people who hadn't yet arrived. I'd titled it, Before. It represented everything I was before Karen, before compromise, before dimming my own light. And also everything I'd become after choosing myself. Margaret joined me. "That's my favorite too. There's such hopefulness in it. Like anything is possible." That's exactly how I felt when I took it. Free. Finally free to be whoever I wanted to be. She smiled. And who did you discover you wanted to be? I looked around the gallery at my work, my truth, displayed for the world to see. Just myself. Turns out that's enough. 6 months after the Anderson Gallery exhibition, my life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined. The International Photography Foundation commissioned a year-long series documenting cultural transitions in Southeast Asia. Modern Photography magazine, the same publication that had wanted my response to Richard's accusations, instead ran a 10-page feature on my artistic evolution with zero mention of relationship drama. 3 major galleries requested future exhibitions. 2 fashion houses wanted me as their primary campaign photographer. A documentary filmmaker approached about featuring my work in a film about contemporary art. But the most unexpected change wasn't professional. It was personal. Charlotte and I had grown closer during her transition to Anderson Gallery. What began as professional respect evolved into genuine friendship. Then, slowly, carefully, into something more. "I don't want to be your rebound," she'd said one evening over dinner. "I've watched you love Karen for too long. I won't be the person who helps you forget her." "You're not a rebound," I'd replied honestly. "You're the person who helped me remember who I was before I lost myself. There's a difference." We took things slowly. No grand announcements, no social media proclamations. No industry gossip. Just 2 people who understood each other, respected each other, and genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Being with Charlotte was nothing like being with Karen. There was no drama, no manipulation, no constant testing of boundaries. Just easy conversation, shared ambition, mutual support. We attended each other's openings, celebrated each other's successes, and navigated challenges as partners rather than competitors. "Is this what healthy relationships feel like?" I asked her, one morning. She laughed. "I think so. Novel concept. Isn't it?" Karen, meanwhile, had largely disappeared from the industry spotlight. Richard's article had eventually been retracted after several photographers came forward with evidence that he'd fabricated quotes and edited communications to misrepresent context. The blog issued a public apology, and Richard's credibility was destroyed. Karen attempted 2 more solo exhibitions at smaller galleries. Both received lukewarm reviews, noting technical competence but lack of original vision. Without my connections to leverage and my style to borrow, her work revealed itself as exactly what Margaret had identified years ago: derivative. I heard through industry contacts that she'd moved to Los Angeles, attempting to break into celebrity photography. I wished her well from a distance and moved on with my life. Then, almost a year after our breakup, I received an unexpected email. "Robert, I know I have no right to contact you. I know I destroyed any possibility of friendship between us, but I wanted you to know that I'm in therapy, working through my issues, trying to understand why I behaved the way I did. My therapist suggested I write to people I've harmed, not to ask forgiveness but to take accountability. So, here it is, I used you. I saw your talent, your connections, your kindness, and I exploited all of it for my own gain. I told myself I loved you, but I loved what you could do for me. When you left, I felt abandoned, but really, you just stopped allowing me to take advantage of you. I'm sorry. Truly. Genuinely sorry. I don't expect you to respond. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I did, and I'm trying to be better. I hope you're well. You deserve every success. Karen." I read the email 3 times, processing the words, examining my emotional response. I felt nothing. No anger, no vindication, no lingering hurt. Just mild curiosity about her journey and genuine hope that she found whatever she was looking for. I showed the email to Charlotte. Should I respond? She considered for a moment. "Do you want to?" "I don't know. Part of me feels like I should acknowledge her growth, but another part thinks responding keeps a door open that should stay closed." "Then don't respond. Her apology is for her healing, not your closure. You already have closure." She was right. I'd found closure months ago, standing in Anderson Gallery, watching my work receive recognition on its own merit. I deleted the email without responding. 2 months later, I flew to Thailand for the Foundation Commission. The project was ambitious, documenting traditional craftspeople whose work was being displaced by modernization. I'd spend weeks in small villages, capturing disappearing art forms before they vanished entirely. Charlotte came with me for the first 2 weeks, using vacation time from the gallery. We explored temples, ate street food, photographed sunrise over rice paddies, and talked about the future. "I've been offered a promotion," she mentioned casually one evening. "Senior curator position. More responsibility. More travel. More opportunities to shape emerging artists' careers. That's incredible. When do you start? That depends. The position would require relocating to London for at least 2 years. My stomach dropped. London. I haven't accepted yet. I wanted to talk to you first. She took my hand. Robert, I'm not asking you to come with me. We've only been together 6 months. I'm not asking you to rearrange your life. But I need to know if this relationship has a future you're invested in, or if we're just enjoying something temporary. I looked at her, really looked at her. Charlotte, who'd believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Who'd stood beside me through chaos without adding to it. Who celebrated my successes without jealousy and supported my ambitions without resentment. I wasted 3 years on someone who never saw me. I said slowly. I'm not going to waste another moment being anything less than certain about someone who does. What does that mean? It means I'm invested. Completely. If you go to London, we figure it out. If you stay, we figure it out. But either way, I'm choosing you. Consciously, deliberately. Without reservation. She smiled, tears forming in her eyes. Good. Because I already accepted the position. What? I needed to know if you'd fight for us or if you'd just let me go. I needed to know you'd learned the difference between accommodating someone's chaos and supporting someone's dreams. I laughed, pulling her close. So this was a test. Call it a final confirmation that you're really done being passive in relationships. We spent 2 years navigating long distance. I visited London whenever work permitted. She flew back for important exhibitions. We video called constantly, sharing daily details, discussing work challenges, maintaining connection despite distance. It wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. When Charlotte's London contract ended, she returned with an offer to establish an American branch of the international gallery she'd been working with. The location? New York, where my career was now primarily based. Convenient timing, I said when she told me. Almost like I planned it, she replied with a grin. We found an apartment together in Brooklyn, a spacious loft with perfect natural lighting for both our work. Charlotte curated emerging artists. I continued traveling for commissions but always had a home to return to. 3 years after that exhibition at Anderson Gallery, I found myself at another opening. This time, Charlotte's first major exhibition as an independent curator, showcasing photographers whose work challenged conventional narratives. I was there as her partner, supporting her moment rather than sharing the spotlight. Karen attended. I hadn't seen her in person since that night at Anderson Gallery. She looked different. Quieter, somehow, less performative. She'd brought a date, a screenwriter she introduced briefly before moving on to view the exhibition. Later, she approached me alone. Congratulations on your engagement. I saw the announcement. I glanced at my left hand, where a simple band now rested. Charlotte and I had gotten engaged quietly, no dramatic proposal, just a mutual decision about the future we wanted to build together. Thank you, I said simply. She's talented. The exhibition is excellent. She is. It is. Karen hesitated. I'm glad you're happy, Robert. I mean that. I'm sorry, it couldn't have been with me, but I'm glad you found it. I'm glad you're doing better too, Karen. And surprisingly, I meant it. Not because I'd forgiven everything or forgotten the hurt, but because her happiness or unhappiness no longer affected mine. She was just another person at an exhibition. Someone I used to know. Someone who no longer held any power over my peace. After she left, Charlotte appeared at my side. That looked civil. It was. Strange, but civil. Having regrets, she teased. Only that I didn't find you sooner. She kissed me softly. You found me exactly when you were supposed to. We both had to become who we needed to be first. The exhibition was a massive success. Charlotte's career skyrocketed. My own work continued earning international recognition. We built a life together based on mutual respect, genuine support, and the kind of love that doesn't require diminishing yourself to make room for another person. 5 years after Karen announced her engagement to Richard at our joint exhibition, Charlotte and I stood in the same gallery space, now hosting a retrospective of both our careers. 2 artists, 2 visions, displayed side by side not in competition but in complement. The invitation we designed together read, Light and Perspective, a dual exhibition by Robert Chen and Charlotte Evans. Unlike that night with Karen, there was no drama. No competition for attention. No underlying resentment. Just 2 people who'd each found their own light and chose to shine together. My mother approached with tears in her eyes. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Not just for your success, but for becoming someone who knows his own worth. It only took me 3 years of losing it to figure out, I joked. The important thing is you figured it out. As the evening progressed, I found myself thinking about that moment at Karen's birthday party when everything changed. When I chose dignity over drama, self-respect over desperately clinging to something that was destroying me. That choice had cost me nothing real and gained me everything that mattered. Charlotte squeezed my hand, pulling me back to the present moment. What are you thinking about? Just remembering the moment my life actually started. When was that? The night I stopped fighting for someone who didn't value me and started fighting for the person I wanted to become. She smiled. And who did you become? I looked around the gallery, at the life we'd built, the work we'd created, the future we were shaping together. Someone who finally understands that love shouldn't require you to dim your own light. It should celebrate both people shining as brightly as they can. Charlotte raised her glass. To shining brightly. I touched my glass to hers. To choosing ourselves and finding each other in the process. Years later, people still occasionally asked me about Karen, about that dramatic night, about how I walked away so easily from 3 years of my life. I always gave the same answer. I didn't walk away from 3 years. I walked toward the rest of my life. There's a difference. Because the truth is, revenge isn't about destroying the person who hurt you. Real revenge is building a life so fulfilling, so genuine, so aligned with who you actually are that the person who dismissed you becomes completely irrelevant to your happiness. Karen expected me broken when she married my former assistant. She expected me desperate, begging, diminished. Instead, she got to watch me thrive, succeed, find genuine love, and build the career I'd always been capable of once I stopped making myself smaller to accommodate her ego. That was the ultimate revenge, proving that I never needed her, that everything I achieved on my own merit, that my light never came from her reflection, it was always mine. She just tried to eclipse it, and I finally stopped letting her. Now I shine on my own terms, beside someone who celebrates that light rather than trying to dim it. And that, ultimately, is the happiest ending of all.